This morning I was asking and begging the Lord to take me to heaven, for I am tired of my life, and the sorrow it brings me in what appears as a fruitless ministry. But God answered, no, there is much work for you to do. Look at Elijah as an example. Elijah thought the same, and longed for God to take his life. 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 4 But he, Elijah himself, went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die, and said, It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Elijah won the battle against the 450 prophets of Baal and 400 of Asherah. In doing so, won Israel's heart back to God. But the devil would have him focus on that one queen. He did not win for Jehovah. Just because we do not see what we labor for, doesn't mean it is fruitless. There are many vegetables like yams, beets, parsnips, turnips, rutabagas, carrots, yucca, kohlrabi, onions, garlic, celery root or celeriac, horseradish, daikon, turmeric, jicama, Jerusalem artichokes, radishes, and ginger that grow underground, where one cannot see it grow till the time of the harvest. There is also a fruit that grow underground, peanuts. While here on earth we may not see what we labor for, but that doesn't mean it is not taking effect. The increase may not be visible to the human eyes, but it is there and shall grow. Just like when a person starts eating healthy or doing exercises, would they see the effects right away? No. For the effects needs to take inside before one could see it outward. And the pain that we bear is because, at times we might, like olives, have to be beaten to produce its precious oil. Exodus chapter 27 verse 20. They bring thee pure olive oil beaten for the light, Tanakh 19:17. And like a flower or a rose, stepped upon to produce our fragrance for the purpose to be a nourishment and a blessings to others in our place. So as you are beaten and stepped on, know you are producing a fragrance which the Lord of glory is proud to use. Faith is like a seed till sprouts and it's seen. Abraham was not called with great faith. He and Sarah doubted God many times and made mistakes that even now we are affected by it. Romans chapter 4 verse 20 NASB states, Yet with respect to the promise of God, he did not waver in unbelief but grew strong in faith, giving glory to God. Notice what this translation states, grew strong in faith. In other words, his faith wasn't always strong, and we could see that, but it grew inside. If there is any doubts of what I'm saying, we could see him laughing at the promise of God in Genesis chapter 17, and Sarah laughing at the promise of God in Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 17 verses 17 to 18. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Genesis chapter 18 verses 12 to 14. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I surely bear a child, since I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Did Abraham and Sarah had the faith to move mountains? The answer is yes, for their faith was the size of a mustard seed. Matthew chapter 17 verse 20, So Jesus said to them, Because of your unbelief, for assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. But it didn't stood that way. Eventually, it grew as they saw the promises of God fulfilled in their lives. Abraham became a man of great faith, so much faith that when God told him to sacrifice his son, Abraham went ahead to do that very thing, believing that God will raise his son from the dead, which Isaac becomes a type and foreshadowing of Christ, and Abraham a type of God the Father. Genesis chapter 22 verse 5, And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, the lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. Hebrews chapter 11 verses 17 to 19. By faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, In Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. The working of within, whether we see it or not, God is either using us to affect a person's life, or he's molding us within. I've said this before and at times I don't believe it, but I know in my heart is to be true in the day that we see Jesus. He will show us a great harvest of souls, and we will ask him where did all these souls came from, and he will tell us, what you called your failures I call your success, and now I want you to know it was not all in vain.